Dive in the dark, electric chair, that fatal spark.
Hello and welcome to the Producing Success Podcast. This is a very special episode of the podcast for two reasons. Number one, it is the first time we're talking to you video style instead of audio. And secondly, this is the very first edition of the Catastrophicon series. So we're going to be talking to Ed Perratore, who is one of the authors who's going to be at the Catastrophicon. Just a little background as to why we're doing this, because this is also the first episode that is not about producing conferences. And when I envisioned the whole concept of the Producing Success podcast, I wanted to just talk to anyone who produces anything. Okay. If you've heard me give my speech about producing conferences, you've heard me say that we're all producers. Steven Spielberg is a producer, Dr. Dre is a producer, and we as conference producers are also producers. So that's the idea. We want you to get inspired. We want you to think about what you want to create in life. And we want you to unloosen screws and, reach your potential. So anyway, now I'm going to introduce our guest. This is Ed Perratore, who is an author from Mount Kisco. I am in the middle of his book, The Coven Tree. It's great. I'm almost done. Really gripping. And so welcome, Ed.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Dave.
So thank you for being part of the podcast. Thank you for being part of the Catastrophicon Rock and Roll Horror Convention in July. And so you're a writer. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your books?
Yeah, sure. Both of them are horror novels, indie novels that fit right into the vibe of Catastrophicon. The one that you're reading, Dave, is just for readers. It takes place in the Adirondack Mountains of upper New York State. It begins with a mysterious, exquisitely carved highboy, an elegant chest of drawers on four legs for folks who've never seen one, at a local antique shop run by an old man who seemed desperate to sell the piece to Johanna and Daniel Kane, who just not quite happened by, but they stumble upon the place. They buy the piece for only $1,000, which seems incredible to them because it's a piece, as in more ways than one, to die for. Once they bring it home, though, it brings something besides grandeur. Visitors witness terrifying scenes. Deaths begin to occur without explanation. And soon the highboy manages to ravage the Kanes' very lives where they're most vulnerable. If you think of the average home, wood everywhere, your furniture, your walls, your floors, everything, for the most part, is wood. What if something could infect that very wood and infect your home and make you fear for your lives in a place you're supposed to feel most comfortable? Well, perhaps too late, the Kanes see this highboy for what it is, the instrument of the family's destruction through a centuries-old vendetta. Will they learn how to defend themselves before it's too late? That's the bones of it.
Yeah, no, it's a real good book. I'm kind of trying to squeeze in a few minutes every night to do some leisure reading, and it's definitely enjoyable. Everyone's gonna want to hear more about it. Why don't you tell us? I know you have a couple other books. You have what's the other one? Kindred is called?
Kindred Spirits is the other one. Well, for a little background on Kindred Spirits, which I wrote first, we've all heard of the term ghosting, where a friend, colleague, or client unexpectedly drops you out of their lives as if you never existed. But in Kindred Spirits, there's a different meaning to it, a far more chilling usage known only by certain children, the mistreated, the physically and emotionally abused. These children learn to cope with the challenges of the day by having their spirits exit their bodies for a few hours while their bodies recover. One child, 9-year-old Natalie Leffingwell, learns about ghosting one night after a particularly harsh beating from her father. She watches as her spirit separates from her body. She learns that she can soar through the air, play with other children while her body recovers at night. It's her only way of dealing with her life situation. There's only one rule, that children out ghosting have to rejoin their bodies in a flash if the physical self is threatened. Natalie inadvertently breaks this rule and finds herself trapped in the spirit world. she needs a friend like her because she feels like it's only her recourse, her only recourse, sorry. And she resolves to win one, whatever that takes.
Very cool.
There you have it.
So your stories, at least the Coven Tree, takes place in in the Hudson Valley, which is part of what the whole point of Catastrophicon is bringing this whole idea to the Hudson Valley. You're one. Just everyone who's watching this, there's going to be several other writers there, and a few of them do write about the Hudson Valley. Personally, I want the Hudson Valley to become the next Castle Rock, where people go to read horror stories and they know certain areas.
Yeah.
But why don't you tell us a little bit about what inspires you to write these stories, and why do you choose those locations?
Yeah, well, I think with both novels, they have a common element of we in our cushy lives tend to feel like there are certain places or situations where we're safe. We're safe among our families. We're safe among the household, in the home that we rent or own. This is our home. This is our shelter. This is where we stay, and the rest of the world is out there. Well, both these books, it's turned on its head. In the Coven Tree, the idea of home turns on its head. In Kindred Spirits, the idea of, well, we have this living experience on this earth, we live our lives, and then we go on to some other place. Well, maybe not. Maybe there's an in-between place. And that's kind of where I was going with both these, like to make the comfortable of life uncomfortable.
Yeah, very good. And anything about the Hudson Valley that brings you into that kind of reminds you of that? Because this Coven Tree takes place in Glen Falls, where I've been a ton of times. It's up by Lake George.
Yeah, it's north of it's the kind of northwest of Lake George, where you really get deeper into the park, away from the touristy areas. I mentioned Glens Falls, I mentioned Lake George, but it's more into the forest than that,
Yeah.
where you can feel actually afraid at night because it's so quiet and you hear only the sounds around you, the trees in the blowing in the wind, and the various animals out there.
Yeah, and I think it's great because it could put a little fear for those of us who grew up camping up in that area.
Oh,
A
sure.
little more, for campfire stories.
Yes.
Once you know what kind of imagination dwells up there. So great. So anyway, I just wanted to introduce everyone to some of the interesting people who are going to be there. Get to talk to Ed in person, pick up one of his books, definitely. Ed, what are you looking forward to most about the Catastrophicon, which is, by the way, July 15th in Purchase?
Yeah, well, probably one of the biggest thing that I like is being around other people with similar interests. That there are people they're fans of the movies, fans of horror, fans of comics, fans of all these different things that are kind of the same overall community. And I don't get to spend much time with people who are immersed in these parts of the culture. And I'm looking very much forward to meeting people, talking about the books, talking about what they're working on, producers, the musicians, the various people who were part of the show. And I haven't been to a show like this before, and I can't wait.
So this is all about imagination.
Sounds good. Honored to be a part of it. So thank you very much, Dave.
We're living in suburban town with a hot suburban groove. I'm your neighbor, I'm living next to you. What you gonna do?